It was difficult to believe that fans who had cheered for them on TV now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about the Beets family. The dramatic turn of events left a trail of confusion, disbelief, and above all, curiosity. Viewers who once rooted for them, celebrated their victories, and shared in their struggles were now glued to their screens for entirely different reasons. The announcement that followed shook the foundation of everything the public thought they understood about Tony and his family. It came after an intense legal battle, one that dragged on for weeks under veil of secrecy and rising tension. The investigation that followed revealed a series of events that painted a much darker picture than anyone had expected. What began as whispers in the corners of internet forums and vague media hints soon evolved into a full-blown scandal. Details about the case were carefully kept under wraps, which only added to the mystery surrounding the entire situation. The silence from the Beets family during the initial stages raised more questions than it answered, prompting both loyal fans and critics to speculate wildly. Everyone wanted to know the truth. What had happened? Why were there legal issues? Who was really responsible? Stay with us as we delve into the journey of Tony and Mike, what exactly they did to land them in this position, if they were involved in legal activities, or if there was a more complex web of events that led to their downfall. To truly understand the magnitude of what unfolded, we must first step back and revisit the origins of this mining dynasty. Tony Beets was born in 1959 in the small village of Dennis, located in the Netherlands. Life in that region was simple but not easy. From an early age, Tony learned the value of hard work, perseverance, and the importance of doing whatever was necessary to support one's family. These traits would come to define his life. In 1980, at the age of 21, he made a bold move to Canada. He arrived in a new land, carrying little more than hope and a few dollars in his pocket. It was a daunting leap of faith for a young man with big dreams. He initially settled in Alberta, where he took up work on a dairy farm to make ends meet. Life was tough. The hours were long, the work was exhausting, and the pay was minimal. But Tony was no stranger to hard work. However, it didn't take long for him to realize that farming, while honest labor, offered limited financial prospects. The days began to blend together in a rhythm of toil that brought little reward. Drawn by stories of fortune buried beneath frozen earth and driven by his relentless work ethic, he shifted his focus to mining. Gold was calling, and Tony was ready to answer. The unforgiving climate and remote wilderness of the Klondike region in the Yukon territory would have discouraged many, but not Tony. Where others saw desolation and hardship, Tony saw not obstacles but opportunities. It was there, among snow-covered valleys and icy rivers, that Tony Beets began to shape the life that would one day captivate millions of viewers around the world. In the Yukon, Tony didn't just mine for gold, he carved out a legacy. The rough terrain and extreme weather became the backdrop for his rise in the gold mining world. Through perseverance, grit, and an almost defiant refusal to quit, he not only struck gold but also discovered his true passion. Mining wasn't just a job for Tony. It became his way of life, shaping him into one of the most successful and recognizable figures in the industry. With every shovel of earth and every ounce of gold extracted from the frozen ground, Tony was building more than just wealth. He was building an empire. He didn't just find success in the Yukon. He built a gold mining empire from the ground up. Starting with almost nothing, Tony turned his modest beginnings into a family-run mining dynasty that became one of the most recognized operations in the Klondike. His wife, Minnie Beets, played a crucial role from the very beginning. While Tony battled the elements in the field, Minnie managed the books, handled finances, and kept the business side of things in order. Her meticulous planning and management were essential to the operation's survival and success. Together, they were an unstoppable team. As the business grew, the Beets children, Kelvin, Monica, and Mike, followed in their father's footsteps. Rather than pursuing careers elsewhere or chasing modern professions in urban settings, they joined the family venture. They didn't just stand by and watch, they immersed themselves in it, mastering the operation of massive, multi-million-dollar heavy machinery. Under Tony's watchful and often stern guidance, they learned the trade the hard way, by doing it themselves, often in extreme weather and harsh conditions. Tony quickly gained a reputation not only for his deep mining knowledge and relentless work ethic but also for his no-nonsense attitude and larger-than-life personality. His unconventional methods, fiery temper, and famously colorful language set him apart from other miners. He became known for barking orders and pushing his crew, family included, to their limits, often punctuated by his now iconic catchphrase, "Shut the **** up and keep mining." This raw authenticity struck a chord with viewers of the hit reality show Gold Rush, where Tony quickly became a fan favorite. People admired his refusal to sugarcoat reality and his sheer determination to succeed against the odds. When Tony Beets joined Gold Rush in Season 2, he wasn't a rookie. He already had decades of mining experience under his belt. Having worked in the industry for years, Tony brought a level of expertise that many of the other miners lacked. While many of his peers struggled to find gold in the harsh conditions of the Klondike, Tony's operation consistently outperformed the competition, delivering impressive gold totals year after year. His experience and strategic approach to mining allowed him to thrive where others faltered. By Season 5, Tony took a bold leap that would solidify his place as one of the most ambitious miners in the Klondike. He purchased the historic dredge at Eureka Creek for a whopping $1 million. It was a massive gamble, one that many critics thought would end in disaster. The dredge was an outdated relic, a decaying monument to a bygone era of mining. But Tony saw potential where others saw risk. He poured resources into restoring the legendary dredge, a massive piece of mining equipment few dared to touch. Against all odds, Tony made it profitable, proving his critics wrong and turning the dredge into a successful operation that helped boost his empire. The dredge wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of Tony's belief in perseverance and vision. As Gold Rush continued to grow, producers quickly realized that Tony Beets and his family were an essential part of the show's appeal. The drama within the Beets family, combined with Tony's larger-than-life personality, became a central element of the show's success. The Beets family, often referred to as the Vikings of the Klondike, brought a unique energy to the show, and their storylines became some of the most compelling for viewers. It wasn't just about gold. It was about the Beets family's resilience, dynamic relationships, and their unrelenting pursuit of success. Beyond gold, Tony found something even more valuable in the Yukon wilderness, a platform to showcase his authenticity and determination. His journey proved that with hard work, calculated risk-taking, and a bit of grit, it was possible to turn even the most unlikely ventures into thriving businesses. Success in the Klondike wasn't guaranteed, but for Tony Beets, it was the reward for decades of perseverance and relentless pursuit of his goals. Over the years, the Beets family built a mining empire that grew steadily in front of television audiences. As viewers tuned in, they witnessed the family's evolution, not just as miners, but as a tight-knit unit weathering the highs and lows of business and life together. They saw Kelvin's growth into a leader, Monica's grit and fearlessness on heavy equipment, and Mike's quiet but steady dedication. Each member brought their own strength to the operation, and together, they upheld the legacy their father had begun. But beneath the rugged exterior and the roar of bulldozers, something else was brewing, something darker, more complex. And when it finally emerged, it left the world stunned. The cracks didn't appear all at once. At first, they were small: a tense argument caught on camera, a cancelled appearance at a fan event, a quiet reshuffling of equipment and personnel at one of their sites. Longtime fans noticed. They speculated online, whispering about what might be happening behind the scenes. Then came the official announcement, not through a press release or dramatic TV cliffhanger, but through legal filings unearthed by investigative journalists. It was an anonymous tip that led reporters to dig into records at the Yukon Territorial Court. And what they found sent shockwaves through the mining world. A civil suit had been filed against the Beets family business, specifically naming Tony and Mike. The allegations were staggering: environmental violations, illegal waste dumping, falsified safety documents, and improper employee treatment on remote mining sites. A former crew member turned whistleblower claimed that corners were being cut, hazardous materials were being disposed of in protected waterways, and workers were being forced to operate under unsafe conditions without proper breaks or access to emergency services. What made matters worse was that these weren't minor infractions. They were felony-level accusations that could lead to prison time, massive fines, and the revocation of mining licenses. The gold empire Tony had built with his bare hands was now on the brink of collapse. As news outlets began to cover the story, more information came to light. Apparently, Mike had taken over operations at a remote site in 2022 while Tony focused on upgrading another dredge. According to internal documents and testimony submitted in court, Mike allegedly made decisions that prioritized gold yield over regulation. It was claimed he bypassed permits, expanded the site beyond authorized limits, and failed to report multiple oil spills. Witnesses testified that machinery was operated in violation of environmental codes, and at least 2 accidents had gone unreported to the authorities. The Beets family's camp initially denied the claims. Their lawyers released a carefully worded statement asserting their innocence and promising to fight the accusations in court. But the damage had already begun. Sponsors began distancing themselves. Discovery Channel announced an internal review of its relationship with the Beets operation. Tony, once a beloved figure known for his rough-edged charm, found himself portrayed in headlines as a reckless outlaw who had allowed ambition to cloud judgment. It wasn't long before rumors of criminal charges began swirling. In a surprise development, the Canadian Environmental Protection Agency joined the investigation. Agents descended upon one of the Beets' active claims with drones, forensic surveyors, and wildlife specialists. The footage captured showed oil slicks in a nearby stream, large sections of clear-cut forest without buffer zones, and barrels marked for hazardous waste left uncovered in the open air. The findings were enough to trigger criminal proceedings. Tony and Mike were charged with multiple counts, including violations of the Yukon Waters Act and federal environmental protections. If found guilty, they faced not only financial ruin but jail time, up to 5 years for each major violation. Courtroom proceedings began with heavy media coverage. The Beets family, dressed in muted suits rather than mining gear, looked starkly different under the courtroom lights than they ever had on television. The family were seated together, Tony, stoic and fuming, Minnie beside him with clenched fists, and Mike staring ahead, expression unreadable. Prosecutors laid out their case with precision. Satellite imagery, whistleblower recordings, leaked emails, and expert testimonies painted a picture of willful negligence. They argued that Tony had fostered a toxic culture of results over rules, and that Mike had followed that lead to dangerous extremes. The defense countered that the incidents were exaggerated, the result of disgruntled former employees, and that no permanent harm had been done. They argued that Tony and Mike had always respected the land, employing dozens of locals, contributing to the economy, and maintaining compliance where possible. They painted the Beets family not as villains, but as pioneers whose boldness sometimes clashed with red tape. But then came a blow no one expected. Monica, the youngest and most beloved of the Beets children, was subpoenaed by the prosecution. She was called not as a defendant, but as a witness. And her testimony changed everything. With visible discomfort and long pauses, Monica confirmed that tensions had been rising within the family long before the lawsuit. She admitted that she had voiced concerns to her father and brother about the safety protocols at Mike's site. She claimed she had begged them to report a machinery fire that left a worker with second-degree burns, but they refused, fearing shutdown. Her words were not accusatory. If anything, they were sorrowful, as if she was watching a legacy she loved unravel. "We were chasing something," she said quietly, "and we didn't know when to stop." The courtroom fell silent. That one statement, simple, raw, and heartbreakingly honest, left a heavier impact than any piece of evidence. The jury looked shaken. So did Tony. For the first time during the proceedings, the hardened miner lowered his gaze. The trial dragged on for weeks, each day peeling back another layer of the family's public image. What had once seemed like a perfectly oiled machine began to appear more like a rusting rig held together by stubborn pride and duct tape. The verdict came with a mix of relief and finality. Tony Beets was found guilty on 2 of 5 counts. He avoided prison but was ordered to pay over $1.5 million in fines, submit to quarterly environmental audits, and relinquish operational control of 2 claims for 5 years. Mike wasn't so lucky. Convicted on 3 counts, including reckless endangerment and unlawful waste disposal, he was sentenced to 18 months in a minimum security facility and banned from holding a mining license for a decade. The courtroom reaction was a mixture of shock and sorrow. Mike was led away in cuffs, head held high, but eyes glistening. Tony didn't speak to reporters that day. He simply walked out, face hard, Minnie by his side, and drove off into the Yukon twilight. The aftermath was difficult. Discovery Channel terminated its contract with the Beets family. Reruns of episodes featuring them were pulled from rotation. Their social media accounts, once bustling with fans and Gold Hall updates, went dark. Monica took an extended break from mining. Kelvin moved to Alaska to work with an independent outfit. Tony, however, remained. Stripped of the glamour and camera crews, he returned to the land. He leased a small, isolated claim and began mining with a skeleton crew, not for television, not for fame, but because, as he told a local paper months later, "It's what I do. It's what I've always done." As for Mike, his time in prison was quiet. He kept to himself, reportedly spent hours reading mining journals and writing letters. When he was released, he returned home, but did not return to the family business. Instead, he enrolled in an environmental science program at a community college, seeking, perhaps, a way to understand what went wrong and how to do better. Public opinion about the Beets family remains divided. Some still defend them fiercely, arguing they were scapegoated for systemic issues in an industry full of grey areas. Others see them as cautionary tales, proof that even legends can fall when the rules are ignored.